A very good evening, all. You're welcome back to COMM882, that is Seminar 2. This evening we're going to continue with Module 3, that is Research Methods. And in our previous class, we looked into Module 1 and Module 2. And remember, in Module 1, yeah, we have exposed you on the way to define your research question and reviewing of existing literature. So now the next crucial step is to determine how you answer that question. And this particular module will guide you through the various approaches and techniques used in public health research. And here we're going to look at various research designs, methods, and approaches to carrying out or conducting research. So now let's look at some of the learning outcome. By the end of this module, first you will be able to understand the different stages of the research process, and secondly, you will be able to distinguish between various research designs, including quantitative, qualitative, and the mixed method approaches. Third, you will learn about different sampling techniques and their appropriate applications. Furthermore, we will explore various data collection methods based on your research question. We look at their strengths and their limitations. And finally, you will gain an understanding of the ethical consideration that governs the principle of conducting responsible research, especially with as it concerns human participants. So these objectives are designed to provide you with a comprehensive understanding of the research methodology. So now we look at the research process. Okay, the research process, as we have said earlier, is a systematic process that follows a series of steps to answer questions, solve problems, or generate new knowledge. Um, Understanding the process is essential for conducting a very rigorous and valid research. And the research process actually is a systematic journey. Typically, it involves 6 key steps. First, you need to identify the research problem. Here, you need to define a clear, focused research question or problem that addresses a gap in knowledge. Then, second, you need to conduct a thorough literature review. And in our earlier lectures, we discussed the various literature review, and we also discussed what differentiate a real literature review from a summary. So in the literature review, actually you are expected to examine existing research so as to conduct what is already known and identify the research gaps, that is what is not known. Then the third process is to design your research, and here you're expected to develop a plan that outlines the methodology, the sampling strategy, and data collection methods, which we are going to look in-depthly in this particular module. Then fourth, it has to do with the data collection. Here you need to know source of your data or information using appropriate method such as survey, interviews, or observation. Then fifth, you need to conduct data analysis. Here, you need to process and interpret the collected data using appropriate analytical techniques. Then lastly, you need to report your findings. You communicate your results through report, presentation, publications. Okay, now we look at the various type of research design in public health. And by definition, research design is the overall strategy framework used to structure
study and address a specific research question. And the choice of your research design should depend on the research question, the available resources, and ethical consideration. So the research design actually specifies the structure and the strategy of your investigation. It also tells us how your data will be collected, analyzed, and also interpreted. And in public health, some of the key research designs include one, we have the experimental design. Here, it involves test, cause, and effect relationship, where you manipulate a variable and then you observe the outcome under controlled conditions. Some of the key examples of the experimental design will include the true experiment, quasi experiment, and pre-experimental design. Of our specific interest is the randomized controlled trial, which is one of the commonest experimental design, where you evaluate the effectiveness, for instance, effectiveness of a new vaccine in preventing disease transmission. Other examples include maybe you want to elucidate the scientific use of a herbal remedy. You want to test, for instance, the efficacy of a particular plant extract on maybe any of the animal models, for instance, a Wista rat, or it could be one of the non-infectious diseases like diabetes. You want to ascertain the traditional folklore about its efficacy in treatment of diabetes. Then another type of experimental design or research design is the descriptive design, which aim to describe characteristics, the phenomena, or population without actually manipulating the variables. And key examples include surveys, case studies, and observational research. And other example of this observational research include maybe a cohort study where you follow a particular maybe group over time to determine disease incidence. And the cohort could be in retrospective or prospective. And I know we have discussed this in detail in COMM819, where I went in depth to discuss the various study design and methods. So I urge you to maybe revisit that particular clip. I think I'll share the link. And I know you have done a lot in other courses like COMM839, that is statistics. I know you have done a lot regarding experimental design, so I don't have to go in depth into this. Then we have other example like correlational study design, where you examine relationship between variables without actually manipulating them in order to determine the strength and direction of association. Then we have the case study, where it involves a kind of in-depth investigation of a single individual, group, event, or community to gain detailed insight into complex phenomena. Uh, each of these designs actually has its unique strengths and weakness, and your choice should align directly with your research question and objective. Also, we need to look at how a research design differs from a research method. So for a research method, we said research method are the specific tools, the techniques, the procedures, and the tools used to collect and analyze data within the framework of your research design. And the research methods are broadly categorized into two. We have the quantitative and qualitative. And in some instances, we combine both the quantitative and qualitative in what we regard as the mixed method. And each of these has a distinct characteristics and it serves a different research purpose. For instance, when you look at the quantitative in terms of the purpose, that is, it's used to measure, to quantify, and to test statistical hypotheses. The type of data will involve numerical, that has a statistics or measurement. Then sample size. With respect to quantitative method, typically it will involve large sample size to ensure statistical significance and precision. Then in terms of data collection, here you use structured survey, experiment, and measurement. Then type of analysis, it will involve statistical analysis and kind of hypothesis testing. Then the outcome can be generalized, or you can explain the findings to based on your study population. You can also bring out the statistical relationship. With respect to qualitative method, the purpose here is to explore, understand, and interpret meanings. And the data type here will involve non-numerical. It could be text, it could be images, it could be just anything observational. Then, in terms of sample size, qualitative method, the sample size typically is small and to allow for in-depth analysis. Then data collection, with respect to the qualitative method, can use interview, focus group discussion, or focus group observation to allow for qualitative method. And in terms of the analysis, you can or you could use thematic analysis, content analysis, and in terms of the outcome, maybe detailed description, contextual understanding. Then another special type of research method is the mixed method. Here you combine both quantitative and the qualitative approach in order to have a comprehensive understanding based on your research question. So now let's look at some of the key distinction between a study design and research methods. Here we said the study design is the overall framework or the blueprint for conducting a research study. It answers the what. For instance, what is the overall approach? Example, we said experimental, observational, cross-sectional, or longitudinal study design. With respect to research methods, here is specify the techniques, the tools, and the procedures you use to collect and analyze your data. And it answers the how will data be collected and analyzed. Example, it include maybe using survey, interviews, focus group, or statistical analysis. Then to illustrate this, let's look at some examples. For research design, you might choose an experimental design. For instance, a randomized control trial. It could be an observational design, such as a cohort study or a cross-sectional study. This design defines the nature of your inquiry. Then for the research method, you will then use specific tools like surveys, interview, focus group, or various statistical analysis to collect and make sense out of your data. Okay, and the key relationship here is that your research design provides the overall framework, and your research methods are the specific tools you apply within that framework. Okay, so let's consider some of these public health examples as shown on the slide. For instance, if your research design is a cohort study where you follow health care worker over 5 years to understand the link between shift work and cardiovascular disease risks, your research methods will involve the precise ways you collect data. This could include using standardized blood pressure measurement, validated questionnaires to gather information on lifestyle, and then applying statistical regression analysis to interpret the findings. Then, this shows how the design sets the stage and the methods the actors performing the data collection and analysis. Okay, so this other one shows the key difference between your study design or research design. You have the master, which is the master plan, and it could be an experimental design, an observational design, cross-sectional design, or longitudinal design. While the research methods are the tools or techniques for collecting your data in order to achieve your set research question, and this will involve the survey and questionnaire, interview and focus group, observations and measurement, then statistical analysis. In summary, just to say, research design or study design provides the framework within which research methods are actually applied. Okay, now let's look at some of the sampling techniques that use in public health research. And from definition, it says sampling is the process of selecting a subset of individuals from a population to estimate characteristics of the whole population. And the choice of sampling techniques depends on your research objectives, the resources available, and the population characteristics. The goal here is to ensure that this smaller group or sample accurately represent the entire population, and this will allow us to make valid and reliable inferences about the whole study population or about the whole population. Proper sampling is absolutely crucial for generalizability of your research findings. And here we have two main categories of sampling. We have the probability sampling and we have the non-probability sampling. So let's take them one at a time. Look at probability sampling. The probability sampling ensures that every member of the population has a known non-zero chance of being selected, which is essential for statistical inference. Examples include simple randomized sampling, where individuals are selected purely by chance, like randomly picking names from a vaccination registry to assess immunization coverage. Then we have the stratified sampling, and this involves dividing your population into subgroups like income levels in a city, and then randomly sampling from each subgroup to study the health disparities. Then another type of probability sampling is the cluster sampling technique, which involves randomly selecting entire groups such as neighborhood and then studying all individuals within those selected group for a community or health assessment. Then we also have the systematic sampling technique, where you select element at regular interval after a kind of a random start. Then on the other hand, we have the non-probability sampling, and this involves selection based on non-random criteria, meaning the probability of any individual being chosen is unknown. Why these methods don't allow for statistical generalization to the larger population, they are valuable for specific research questions, especially when you're conducting a kind of qualitative studies. Example include one, we said convenience sampling, where you recruit participants who are readily available, such as individuals from a local health clinic for a nutritional study. Then another example is the purposive sampling. And the purposive sampling will involve deliberately selecting individuals with specific characteristics. For instance, like those with rare diseases for an in-depth study. And we have the snowball sampling, often used in hard-to-reach population, where the initial participant refer other individuals with similar characteristics, such as, for instance, HIV positive participant, referring others for a behavioral intervention study. Then we have the quota non-probability sampling that involves selecting participants based on predetermined quotas. Then the choice of sampling techniques actually will significantly impact on the validity and generalizability of your research findings. Then next, we look at sample size determination. Okay, so for the sample size determination, actually the sample size determination is the process of calculating the minimum number of participants needed in a study to ensure that your results are statistically valid and reliable. And an accurate sample size is crucial because it directly impacts on the study's ability to detect meaningful effects and then generalize findings to the broader population. So there are several key factors that influence sample size, and this will include your desired confidence level. Typically, we use the 95% or the 99% confidence interval, and this indicates how confident you can be that your result reflects the true population. Then the margin of error or precision defines how close your sample estimate is to the true population value. You also need to consider the expected prevalence of a condition or the anticipated effect size of an intervention. For finite population, the total population size is also a factor to consider. Finally, the specific study design you choose, whether it is a randomized control trial or a cohort study or a case control study, will also influence on the sample size calculation. Let's look at some of the commonly used formula for sample size calculation. One of the commonest one is the Cochrane's formula, especially for estimating proportions in a large population. It involves the z-value, which corresponds to your choosing confidence level. Then we have the expected proportion and the margin of error as demonstrated in the formula. N naught equals to z squared times p times bracket 1 minus p all over exponent e squared, where n naught is your sample size, z is the z value. Usually we use the 95% confidence interval, and usually it is 1.96. Then p is the expected proportion of a particular disease within the study location. Then the e is our margin of error. Uh, For finite population, an adjustment is made using the finite population correction formula. For example, if you are conducting a community-based survey to estimate maybe diabetes prevalence, for instance, with a 95% confidence level, then a 5% margin of error and an expected maybe prevalence of 10% within the study location, then it means you will need approximately when you input all this into the formula, you will need approximately 138 participants. Okay, it is vital to get this right because an inadequate sample size can lead to underpowered studies that actually miss important findings. Okay, while an excessively large sample waste valuable resources. You get it? So you have to have a sample size that is optimum. Shouldn't be uh, too low and it shouldn't be too high. Okay. Then common errors to avoid include not accounting for non-response, ignoring clustering effects, underestimating variability, and not planning for subgroup analysis. And all these will impact on the final study result and may affect your study design. So you need to pay attention into some of the common errors to avoid uh, experimental error and invalid results. Yes. So next we look at data analysis and their types that are used in public health.
So before we look at data analysis, we need to look at data collection methods, uh, because it's very, very important. You collect your data, which is a crucial step in the research process. And uh, for instance, once you have your research design and the sampling strategy, you need to collect data. Some of the common methods include surveys, which gather information from a large number of respondents using instruments like questionnaires, often with close-ended questions. Then we have interviews, which is a one-on-one conversation with participants in order to gather in-depth information. The interview can be structured, semi-structured, or unstructured. Then we have the focus group. This involve follow a kind of guided discussions with a small group of participants to explore their perception, their opinion, and attitude on a specific topic that is of public health relevance. Then another way of collecting data is the observation. Observation involves systematically watching and recording behavior or events. Most of these ones that we've discussed have to do with primary data collection. And finally, we have secondary data analysis or collection, which involve using a kind of existing data collected by others, such as a health record or national survey. And each of these methods has its own advantages and disadvantages in terms of the cost, the time, and the type of data it yields. Then choosing the right method actually is essential in order to answer your research question effectively. So now, after collecting our data, the next step is to go into data analysis, and let's see how data are being analyzed. So now the data analysis actually is where we now extract meaningful insights from the information we have collected. It has to do with transforming the raw data into actionable knowledge. Okay, and here we can categorize data analysis into four main types. First, we have the descriptive analytics, and this answers the question, what happened? This involves summarizing and describing the characteristics of your data without drawing conclusions beyond your sample. For example, calculating the prevalence of diabetes in different age groups within a community. Then second, we have the diagnostic analytic analysis, and uh, this involves answering or aims to answer the question, why did it happen? This involves exploring the root causes of observed phenomena. For instance, conducting a root cause analysis of a sudden increase in respiratory illness in a particular area. That is the diagnostic data analytics. Then third, we have the predictive analytics. This focuses on what will happen. And this uses historical data to forecast future outcomes or trend. A public health example will be predicting disease outbreak based on environmental factors, historical epidemic patterns. Then finally, we have the prescriptive analytics, which addresses what should we do. This type of analysis goes beyond prediction to recommend specific actions or interventions. For example, recommending targeted public health campaign based on predictive models of disease spread. Each of these analysis types serve a distinct purpose and helps address different research questions and public health objectives. The choice of analysis actually will depend on your research goal and the type of data you have. Also, understanding this distinction is actually crucial for effectively interpreting and utilizing public health data. Uh,
So it is very also important we look at some of the ethical principles guiding public health research. We know ethical consideration of paramount importance and are fundamental to research involving women participants. Researchers must adhere to ethical principles in order to protect the participants' right, dignity, and welfare throughout the research process. Five core principles guide ethical research, and these include respect for autonomy, beneficence, non-maleficence, justice, and confidentiality and privacy. So, for autonomy, it has to do with respect for individuals' right to make their own decisions, and often it ensures thorough, informed consent. Uh, why beneficence, which means doing good and maximizing benefit. Then we have the non-maleficence, which means doing no harm. Justice, which ensures fair distribution of risks and benefits. And we have confidentiality, which protects the participants' privacy. All research must undergo review by an institutional review board or ethics committee to ensure that these principles are upheld. And adhering to ethical guidelines is not just a regulatory requirement, but a moral imperative in order to protect the right and well-being of the research participants. So this it is very very key to always obtain ethical approval for going into any public health research involving woman subjects. For experimental study, usually we have the ethical committee that has to do with animal welfare and animal rights. You have to seek also the approval. However, there are some kind of studies that may not necessarily seek ethical approval. Such kind of studies, you could just use an ethical statement. For instance, you say this work was done in accordance with standard principles of the committee for conducting research within the given settings where one is working. Uh, okay, so
So now, given all that we have learned so far in Module 3, let's take a case study and let's examine how research method concepts are applied in a real-world public health research scenario. For instance, the hesitancy in COVID-19 vaccine in rural communities. Uh, uh, the aim should be a study investigating factors influencing COVID-19 vaccine hesitancy among residents in rural communities of northern Nigeria. And the study design would involve a mixed method approach that is combining both quantitative survey and qualitative focus group to gain both breadth and depth of understanding. Then the sampling strategy uh, includes stratified random sampling for surveys. You use stratified by age, gender, and educational level. Then maybe for purposive sampling, might involve focus group to ensure representation of key demographic groups. Then the data collection method may involve survey And based on the sampling determination, our n could be 450 based on the prevalence as calculated earlier. Then to measure attitude, belief, and behavior, then the focus group data collection may involve 6 groups, 8 to 10 participants each, to explore underlying reasons and context. Then ethical consideration may involve obtaining informed consent in local languages, then confidentiality protection for sensitive health information, and community engagement and respect for local custom. Then the findings could then inform a public health campaign to address vaccine hesitancy. So this case study illustrates how different methodological components integrate to address a complex public health issue. And this will play a very good role. This will be very important in your seminar assignment. Follow the same step. Uh, so I hope you guys have started, have come up with topics by now, and after this lecture, that will inform the nature and type of research design you are going to employ for your assignment, and you're going to look at the sampling strategy, then the data collection methods, and the ethical considerations that you need to input in your seminar assignment. So in summary, some of the key takeaways from this module 3, here we are able to understand that research methods are the systematic procedure used to collect, analyze, and interpret data. Then the choice between quantitative and qualitative approaches usually will depend on your research question. Then sampling techniques. Here we have seen how sampling techniques determine how representative your findings will be to the larger population. Then data collection method should also align with your research design and objective. Then we have also seen the critical importance of research ethics. Okay, following all the guides and all stages of the research process. So with this, we have can say we have come to the end of the lecture for today, and hopefully I see you in the next module where we focus on communication of your research findings and covering the scientific writing principles, creating effective tables, figures, visualization, oral presentation skills for research communication, and strategies for publishing in academic journals. Then this will be considered in our next module. So thank you for your time, and I think we have come to the end of the lectures for today. If you have any question or comment, please kindly post it on the LMS and I will address them accordingly. Thank you and have a good night rest and a wonderful weekend ahead. Thank you.